The beholder. People believe through force of habit that we are directly watching the external world with our eyes, when in fact we are just seeing what the mind creates inside our mental space. In other words, the images we see with the help of our visual system are not in our eyes, but constructed in our brain and then appear in our mental space. We see only those images and have access only to those images. This is not a poetic interpretation of a mystical secret. It is exactly what actually happens, a factual report of what occurs. Once we acknowledge the essential disparity between the external physical objects and the images created in the mind, we face some subtle questions. Where is the person who sees these images? How and with what tool does he or she see? Clearly, there is no I in the brain or cerebral space, so how and by what are the created images apprehended? Can you show me the beholder in the mind? Can you show the observer of these images to others, or even to yourself? Can you find the Cartesian coordination at which this watcher is located? On a side note, imagine the solitude of the beholder who is sitting in the mental space, forced to behold only his or her own mentally created images, content that he or she is seeing the world, not realizing that he or she has no direct access to the outside, but only to some images of it. In this discussion, it is not important what does or does not exist outside the mind, or how it does or does not look. What matters is the realization that what we see in the process of seeing is just a second-hand creation of the mind. No matter how we interpret the phenomenon of seeing, we do not have any direct understanding of the external world or any immediate access to it. A dark and foggy tunnel separates us from external objects, a tunnel of electrical pulses, and we are at the dark end of it. This fact is horrifying but true. If we contemplate thoroughly, we realize that everything is hazy. Where and how these images are produced, who observes them in the mental space, and how this observation actually occurs are all questions the answers to which are concealed in darkness and ambiguity. I see. We use the phrase I see automatically and habitually, as in, I see that book. We are not used to questioning the validity of such claims. But is the statement, I see that book, correct? Is it logical and compatible with reality? If I am truly the one who sees, am I able not to see? Am I able not to see something in the same way that I am able to see it? Is it possible not to see consciously with my eyes wide open? You know the answer is no. The truth is that the act of seeing is not under the control of I. Basically, when the eyes are open and the light is sufficient, the act of seeing occurs automatically. In fact, the act of seeing occurs absolutely by itself. If you doubt it, open your eyes and try not to see something. You realize you cannot. So be careful the next time you want to use the phrase I see. That phrase is logically incorrect. It is incompatible with what actually happens and does not explain the phenomenon accurately. The correct statement would be, my eyes see, or my visual system sees. But, as we will explain later, even this is not the most exact way of conveying the idea. It is best to say, the eyes see, or the visual system sees. Period. We imagine ourselves to be the agent in the act of seeing, whereas we can neither start nor finish its procedure. It starts automatically with the opening of the eyelids and ends when they are closed. Our will has nothing to do with it. Our presence or absence has nothing to do with it. It is an automatic procedure, regardless of the control or will of the beholder. The whole feeling of control and agency in relation to seeing is an illusion. Please note that there are still many ambiguities in our scrutiny of the problem. We have not yet described the person, his or her position in the mind, or the manner and means of seeing. For instance, stating that the means of seeing are unclear indicates that we do not know how the mental images are received by the agent. We do not have an extra visual system or extra pair of eyes in the brain. So, which eyes see the images created by the brain? Where are these eyes if we take their existence for granted? Even if we suppose that the beholder has a specific visual instrument for seeing mental images, that will not answer any of our previous questions. In that case, unfortunately, the images perceived in that way would be doubly removed from the physical reality of the external world. There is an automatic nervous system in the head that transforms light into electricity, which it then transfers through the nerves to the bit of fat that we call the brain. Then, with the help of the electric pulses received from the nerves, the brain creates an image in an unknown space that we are calling the mental space. Ultimately, a beholder whose location and means of observation are unknown to us finds himself, or herself, watching these images. Or we could more accurately say that the beholder thinks of himself as the observer of the images. In other words, the beholder believes that he is directly observing the physical world, when in fact he is merely seeing the images created by his brain from and inside the mental space. Can you think of any other explanation for this physical phenomenon? Basically, the receiver, or the mental person who receives the data, is not in direct contact with anything in the external world. By the external world, I mean everything outside the mental space, in which, by the force of a faulty habit, I imagines itself as the beholder, the agent that identifies itself with the eyes or visual system and considers their operation as its own. This feeling of agency is merely an illusion. The being and non-being of this agent have no influence on the procedure. The visual system does its job independent of the existence or non-existence of the I. No matter what I thinks about its agency, the eyes and other parts of the visual system do their job on their own. The I merely has an objective role, whereby it only receives data processed and produced by the visual system.